Hi everyone, welcome to Third Coast Gaming Radio. Today is, what is today? It's Monday, June 14th, episode 31, the 30 Dirty. Got E3 31. I'm joined by my co-host Austin Taylor. Hello.
Video games.
Video games. You know, people get really excited for the Super Bowl every year or the NBA playoffs, but for gamers, it's E3, Austin.
That is such
and
a
you've
sad thing. I mean, it's
I'm
not,
sorry, what?
it's
Excuse me?
it's just it's not like I don't mean like that's sad because like um like there is like a reward at the end of like a league game in the Super Bowl or NBA playoffs. Here we are getting ads for things we'll be able to buy later. So I just think it's funny that
Yes.
E3 is where we give that is like we equate E3 to those things.
Yeah, you know, it's a time to celebrate and you get to enjoy new stuff and sometimes you buy them, you know.
Yeah. I
And
like
that's okay.
being
That's
excited for
okay.
video games is fine and cool. God knows I am. Um, I just think that's a funny comparison that people
What
make
was the
every
Devolver
year.
thing? I'm ready to sign up for their new subscription service where you have to pay to play the games, you know? Devolver Max Pass Plus. I'm so ready.
Yeah.
That was a great part of that show. We're going to start with Ubisoft cuz they were on was that Saturday?
Yeah, they were on Saturday. They were not like the first to show. I think Saturday opens with just I can't even remember half of them now. That's where I'm at.
Yeah. Yeah. So we got a couple of stuff from there. Um, the thing that I thought was the coolest was that fucking Riders Republic gameplay. I'm like, oh, it's a snowboarding game. I haven't thought about one of these since like that SSX reboot on like 2 generations ago on PS3 and Xbox 360. And then they're like, oh, you have wingsuits and first-person biking. This is gonna just blow up my brain. I'm ready. That was cool.
Yeah, this seems like a more like all around extreme sport like game as opposed to like the focus on winter sports that Steep had. Um,
Yeah.
that being their last foray into this type of game.
The two other things before that were Guerrilla Collective and the Wholesome Direct, which they had some stuff. We'll get to that later though. We gotta start with the banger, you know.
Or are we
And
calling
they had
this
a
a
couple.
banger?
Yeah. Ives Gamont approves of us calling it a banger.
We don't.
That was weird that he was fucking talking during that. But that's whatever. He's the CEO. He's gonna talk about it.
Yeah.
All right. So the first thing that got was like the Watch Dogs Legion Bloodline expansion got a trailer, which that's like letting you play as
Aiden Pierce.
Eden Pearson. What's the other Sledge? No, it's not.
Yeah,
That's a
Wrench.
different character. Wrench.
Yeah.
Yeah, from Watch Dogs 2. He's the one with like
The
the
mask.
digital face is what I'll call it.
Yeah. That emotes at you.
Yeah.
I I mean, sure. When I saw Watch Dogs Legion, my whole thing was like, man, I wish I could play that game as an unlikable protagonist or that
Eh,
character they did
yeah.
really dirty in Watch Dogs 2.
Yeah. Let's see. Rainbow Six Extraction. We got the cinematic trailer and the gameplay for that. That looks really cool. Too bad I'm not going to have... I already know I'm not going to have people to play that with. But they changed the name. It was Quarantine originally. Got changed to Extraction. It's like a 3-player co-op game spin-off from Rainbow Six Siege. It's like got some of the same characters. You're fighting alien zombies. They're mostly aliens. They look like the stuff from Prey. The little goo...
Yeah,
little
like the
slime
very
boys.
gooey little aliens that like you can tell at one point were just zombies. Uh, but like now they've given them like blade arms, and one of them's got like tendrils coming out of its mouth.
Yeah, and it's got the it seems like it's a little more focused on being like run based or like what I would describe as like an XCOM campaign where you're doing stuff and you might lose people and you have to
Yeah,
like very quickly react to new missions that come up. Like if one of your soldiers gets downed or one of your operators, you have to go and extract them. So they're stuck in there. You have to pick a different character, and you have to go pick them up before you can play as them again.
Yeah, that's like that is an interesting like sort of twist there. Is the idea of the runs in I keep forgetting extraction. I guess that's a mechanic that might have already been in quarantine, but they're just like, oh, this is like we can make this a really big deal. Um, and it seems fun. It seems interesting. I didn't think I was as ready for like a Rainbow Six Siege Left 4 Dead as much as I am, but like the way that they showed off the gameplay and how you can approach the situations in that is quite exciting.
Yeah, and it's like the cool thing about Rainbow Six is they give you options, and I think that can be a much more fun experience in co-op where you're not. I mean, you're still stressed out about stuff, but you're not stressed out about other players, like fighting other people. So like they showed off Sledge, and I don't think yeah, you have a sledgehammer and you can just break walls and you can shoot through walls and stuff, which is like the thing from regular Siege, but now it's like you're moving through an environment, changing stuff and adapting to like whatever's happening. And the other thing that looked cool out of that was like the what was it? I don't know. You watch it, and it's like, oh yeah, this is Siege. You're leaning when you're shooting and stuff. So that's my thoughts on Extraction. It looks cool. I hope to play it.
And we'll see. Yeah, I guess we'll see when it comes out. I could definitely see myself putting some time into it.
They probably won't do this, but I hope. I wish this was like a smaller priced game, like a $30 thing. But they'll probably make it 60 or 70. But I could see that being like a cool entry point into getting like more people into it and getting them into the paid purchase and stuff. It'll probably be on their Ubisoft like subscription thing.
Yeah.
I wouldn't doubt it. That's like PC only right now.
Yeah, and that's I mean that's where like a lot of the audience for Rainbow Six Siege is, you know. But like this being focused on PvE could definitely like get that game like I didn't want to say I don't want to undermine how many people on consoles like actively play Siege, but like could definitely get people who are turned off by like clips of people pulling off like 5 headshots in Siege. It could definitely get them into Rainbow Six.
Yeah, and I'm curious how the controls are gonna like map over to like console. Because I remember not being too into how Siege played on console, but that's because I hadn't really gotten used to it. But yeah, it feels way better on a PC. I'm gonna hit. Let's go. I'm gonna go through quick on a couple of these. Siege got crossplay.
Kind of.
Kind of. It's PC crossplay and then console crossplay for Xbox and PlayStation, which is totally cool. You don't want to mix those two because, overpowered PC players.
Yeah, and it's
with their
also
good
like
aims.
Stadia too, right? Like Stadia also is getting
Stadia and
crossplay.
Amazon Luna, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so like PC players will be able to match with Amazon Luna and Stadia, and then like in 2020, like next year, they will be console crossplay.
Yep, yep. And then we got the Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope that kind of like leaked a day or two before. It might have been a day, but that game series continues to delight me, and I wish to beat that first one on Switch still. But that was good trailer, good interviews with people. It's a sequel to Ubisoft's weird cross between an XCOM like turn-based strategy game and then Nintendo Mario characters hanging out with everyone's favorite
Yeah,
rabbits.
rabbits that have assumed the form of your beloved Mario characters.
And Rabid Rosalina was great. She was just I completely understand that energy, not wanting to do anything.
Yeah,
It's a very good moment of that trailer.
yeah, just being.
From Mario Galaxy, this is like a lot of the stuff in this is like looking like the Mario Galaxy stuff, which had Rosalina and had Star Bits, which are like they instead of picking up coins and stuff, but like a rabbit got mixed with a Star Bit and formed to create some like
Yeah, like
nightmare creature.
at some point, the Mushroom Kingdom decided that they were going to do some illegal genetic modification between the little star bits and
Yeah.
rabbits, and now we have rabid star bits that I guess give you like ultimates, like powers that you can use. And there's also a rabbit that is a Final Fantasy character.
Kind of, yeah. Giant sword. I was like, oh, this is Lady Cloud Strife, isn't it? Um, what was the other thing? The trailer was really funny just because it was like them in a spaceship, like going from planet to planet, and I'm like, oh, Mario just has this. He has a group of Space Marine rabbits, and they're fucking going
Yeah,
around shooting stuff. I'm into it.
yeah. This is just it is a very interesting trailer. I think the weird sort of existential threat they're fighting is a bit, and I mean like it's what you'd expect from like a Mario offshoot. Um,
Yeah, it just looked like a what I will call a tentacle monster, even
I'm
though like
sure it's
you know
like
much
some
different.
like with the inclusion of like a Rosalina like rabid without saying like Rosalina the character, I'm sure it's like some evil space force has like kidnapped or like possessed the space princess.
I wish there was an easy way to play Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 right now.
Dang,
Nintendo.
if only.
Um that fucking Avatar game got announced finally. So, this is the massive Avatar thing. They were the Division guys. They were kind of talking about it before.
Yeah, they teased
And
it.
yeah, they tease it. It's I hope you can play this. Speaking of Space Marines and space, I hope you get to play as the other faction, like the old Avatar game, where you would like get into your blue Navi Avatar body, but you'd side with the humans. But yeah, it looks like it's might be first person. It was mostly a cinematic trailer, no gameplay. Maybe like a little bit of gameplay in the trailer. But I don't know. I like and hate that movie at the same time, so I'm curious. Like, if it's a good game, it's a good game, but I'm not, thrilled about the setting.
Yeah, I mean Avatar is quite frankly as a movie, Avatar is one of the most boring films I think I've ever seen in my life. Um, the game, I can't really muster any sort of strong feelings regarding the game. It's just like I can't I just can't. I look at this and I say, I'm like, yeah, that's the big birds. Yep, that's the humans doing their thing where they're just bombing a jungle for whatever reason. It's I mean, it seems to work fine for a game because it's like very thin setup for giving you two factions that are fighting each other. So like maybe you can side with one or the other, but I have no real strong feelings about this, and I doubt I'll give it a second look.
Yeah. So I like Massive a lot. I think I really like the Division, so I hope they make it like a cool game. Let's see. The smaller stuff that kind of happened was like they had like the Ghost Recon turns 20, so they're showing off some clips from Ghost, like the best of like Breakpoint and stuff.
Hmm.
And then Just Dance 2022 is a game.
Yeah.
And so is Rocksmith, the new Rocksmith. I think they're doing a subscription model instead of buying songs, which is, I think, a smarter idea.
Yeah, I can't think of like a time playing like the older Rock Band or Guitar Hero games when like they started putting out DLC for those. And I was like, man, I really could really buy a new song for one of these. Pay like $6, like $6 or $7 to buy a new song.
Yeah. And then we got that Far Cry 6
Jesus.
like cinematic trailer where Giancarlo Esposito's character kind of comes into the boat and is talking about
Yeah,
like releasing fish back into the ocean and
yeah,
stuff
it's
as a
such
metaphor for I don't know murdering these people.
it's continues. I we talked about this last week about how little faith I had in the game to sort of say anything with like the vague politics they're saying they have, but I really just feel validated at this point because that was one of the worst sort of things I saw in that showcase, especially like the talk with the developer that followed afterwards about how they really wanted to honor the Far Cry villain tradition of like putting someone in front of you who, if you were like talking with them at dinner, you'd be like, man, this guy's got some good points. And that's never been a thing in Far Cry.
No, these dudes are crazy. There's a really good like Gus Johnson video about Far Cry villains where they're just all as close to your face as they can possibly get,
Yeah.
which is like very true as well. But I don't know. I think I kind of went the other way. I'm a little more excited about this. I really like Giancarlo Esposito and his what I will call villain spiel of him talking to you about how bad of a guy he is.
Oh yeah, like
Got me like, oh yeah, I'm into this. I really like Better Call Saul. I'll probably get this game after seeing what the reviews are like.
I mean, yeah, like him chewing scenery is one thing, right? Like he's chewing his way through that scene. It's like it's they're terrible lines, but he makes them work because he's that good. Uh, but like just sort of taking this as like this is the person who I'm supposed to look at and like view as a complicated human. I'm just like, no, actually, I don't think I will.
Yeah, and then we got the. I thought this was the more interesting thing was the Far Cry 6 DLC, where you get to play as the three villains from the other games, and you kind of go into their minds or some shit, like someone is fucking with them. So it's like
It's Voss
I
from
don't
Far
remember the
Cry
bad
3,
guys are.
Pagan Min from Far Cry
Yeah.
4, and Joseph Seed from Far Cry 5.
And it's very trippy looking. I was like, oh yeah, the other guy from Better Call Saul who plays Voss. I'm into that as well. I thought that looked kind of fun.
I
Could be interesting. Like you're being patronized by the person you play as in like Far Cry 3 when you play as Voss, and he gives you his speech but backwards.
I really didn't need to see like what Jason Brody, who is the protagonist of Far Cry 3, I really didn't need to see what his face looked like.
Well, it's burned in your brain now.
I
He's got his sick tribal tattoos too. Don't
Oh
forget
my,
about those.
shut up. Don't bring that up. Don't
Yeah.
speak those words to me. Yeah, I don't. Again, like this is the sort of the overstatement of how engaging Far Cry's villains are. Like everyone talked, like in 20, it was like what 2013, 2012 when 3 came out. Everyone was talking up like how good like Voss as a villain was, and it's the same thing with like
Austin, you cut out.
Giancarlo Esposito, where it's just like
Where'd you go, buddy?
this actor is making this
Did I lose
scene
Austin?
work
I lost
because he's
Austin.
just going for it. Um, it's not particularly engaging dialogue by any means, but like this actor like is making this work. And like to a lesser extent, you have the same thing with like Troy Baker as Pagan Min, and really at no point was Joseph Seed ever a character I thought and I thought of beyond just like, oh, this is I guess the person the game's going to tell me is like has some point about like the state of the world.
Sorry, my mother was talking to me. Yeah, I didn't beat 6. I didn't play. I'm sorry, I didn't beat 5, and I didn't play 4. Like Voss is okay, but yeah, the other, take it or leave it. What was the other thing that came out of that? Oh, Blood Dragon. They're putting Blood Dragon on the current gen consoles, which is cool. Blood Dragon, very cool. It's like that Far Cry 3 DLC that's like what I will describe as synthwave mixed with like
Yeah.
Tron and then other weird shit
Yeah,
going on. It's
like
just 80s
they get
nostalgia.
they get Michael Bean, who is the guy who not Higgs, right? Yeah, it's Higgs, not Hudson. Hudson's the guy who says game over man, but it's Higgs from the guy who plays Higgs in Aliens, right? So
Yes.
they got him as like the main character in Blood Dragon, and he, just it's funny because it's Michael Bean. It's not a particularly interesting performance. But the other thing to note is, um, like they also had Netflix's Geeked Weekend, and they announced
Oh,
that there was a Blood Dragon animated series that they're doing.
ready for that too.
Yeah,
I'm more excited for that. And then they showed off a little like a season 2 of their collaboration with the one guy from It's Always Sunny. I can't remember the name of that show, but
Mythic
it's
Quest.
like on what
No, that's
Apple Plus.
yeah, it's the Apple TV, Apple Plus. That's Mythic Quest.
Yeah,
I
it sounds like a normal sitcom, but with video
Mythic
games. One
Quest
of those
is
shows, you know.
it is really good. I will say like I did like go into it with like a pretty great degree of skepticism, but it is the absolute like it is a sitcom about like the absolute hell that video game development is and can be.
Okay, you
And
sold me on it, Austin.
yeah, I mean it's a
I'm probably
bit
gonna find a way to watch this.
yeah, it is a bit like yeah when you think about like a lot of inspiration that they took for that show did come from Ubisoft. Um,
Yeah, isn't the game stuff they show mostly like the For Honor engine and stuff too?
I think so. Like I think it is because there are a few sequences in it where I think they're playing Mythic Quest. Um, I haven't like I didn't finish the first season. I just remember really liking like the 3 episodes I saw. I should say probably should have led with that when I talked about it being really good. Um, like what's there is really interesting. Like their first season has a quarantine episode, right? Which their showrunner just straight up said like, yeah, we did this episode because we wanted to find a way to pay people for a bit longer, because they were about to have to like shut down production
Yeah.
entirely. And that episode, there is a lot of it's a very nice episode and like one of the few pieces of quarantine media I think I can unironically say was good.
Netflix has a good one too. I can't remember the name of it, but it's like it's all Zoom. It all they use like the Zoom format to do like everything with it and stuff. And they sent all the actors like cameras and stuff and had them send the footage back. It's a really cool show.
Yeah. I
Let's see if I can look up what the name of it is.
yeah. I mean, it's just the complicated like feelings I have towards like the idea of like quarantine media right now. I think the closest I get to
Yeah.
enjoying stuff is that episode of Mythic Quest and like that Bo Burnham special.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's called Social Distance. It's actually like a really touching show about like people's problems and stuff. It's like 8 different people's unique experiences and stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah, I need to watch that Bo Burnham thing. I saw that on Netflix. It's like, okay,
It's
you're a funny dude. I enjoy weird stuff.
it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's like an hour and 20 minutes of like the sort of arc of quarantine of like being stuck and then thinking like, oh, I'm gonna use this time to like better myself, you know, like I'll read up on like political theory that's becoming more and more relevant to people and such, and then it just kind of becomes this descent into man, I really just can't do this.
Nice. Let's see. Let's get into the games we liked from the show. And then we'll come back to Devolver and some of the other press conferences. So speaking of Devolver, is that Shadow Warrior 3 trailer looked fucking bonkers. And I only played the first game of that series, but man, you sell me on a game with dual wielding and like the environment's looking much more colorful and weird. And these games are like the what I would call mainly PC shooters that came to consoles as well and are just like homages to like Doom and like Wolfenstein and like what are the other
Well, yeah, like
can't think of the other one, like Serious Sam and shit.
yeah, this was a like Shadow Warrior is like this is the third game in this sort of resurgence of Shadow Warrior because Shadow Warrior like is a pretty old series. Like this is again like one of these other shooters that comes from like the Doom engine.
I did not know that.
I'm pretty sure. I'm gonna double check just in that way I'm not like being an idiot.
Okay, but it looks very fun. It's got dashes. I remember liking the first game a lot because you had your katana because you're like a mercenary.
Yes, this was developed. The first title was developed by 3D Realms in 1997.
Gotcha. That's cool. All right, into it. Let's see what's your number one spot there? Is Elden Ring, of course. So we got to look at that from the Was it the game
from
showcase?
Jeff
It was the
Keighley's,
Keighley thing.
yeah, Jeff Keighley's Summer Game Fest, which is like not the actual kickoff, it's like this kind of like pre-kickoff for E3, right? He's like the actual schedule for E3 didn't start until Friday, I think. So this is
Yeah.
Keighley's show, and his whole thing is like, oh, it's a big uh like industry, just a big industry showcase. And this is the first. You collect thoughts on Elden Ring. You just collect my thoughts. It's big.
Yeah. Gotta channel your inner Tamor Hussein
Yeah,
and get hype.
I didn't think like Bandai Namco has a showing later this week. I thought if that was going to be anywhere, it was going to be at Bandai Namco. But the fact that they decided to have this 2 minute
Yeah.
trailer hit like at the end of Keeley's show is really interesting. And now we have an updated plot synopsis on the Elden Ring website. Um, and you know what? Like the only derogatory thing I can think of, like I can hear people say about it, is like it looks like a Dark Souls 4, and yeah.
Hey,
Um, turns out,
Dark Souls is
yeah,
cool.
turns out I just wanted Dark Souls with a horse, actually.
Yeah.
Um,
And a double jump.
yeah, like a double
A horse
jumping
with a
horse.
double
It's great.
jump.
But I would say
Yeah.
it looks significantly different enough from Dark Souls, like because when you think about Dark Souls like 1 through 3, um, like Elden Ring does not like adhere to the same sort of aesthetics as a Dark Souls. Like there's a lot of speculation as to what kind of mythology is inspiring Elden Ring, and it seems to the current sort of like popular thought is that Elden Ring looks to be inspired by like Celtic mythology, which
Yes, whereas like Dark Souls was much more like
yeah,
European
like well
like
like yeah,
castles
like
and
British, like
shit.
sort of like medieval like British type deal, and notably just I would say like really just Berserk. And you can say the same thing about Elden Ring in a very real way, like especially when the trailer pans to what looks to be just a world tree. It is very Berserk.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, this looks like this is a really cool trailer that like just sold me on like the vibe of Elden Ring. You've got your first look at some bosses. You got dude with that a dude with like fire coming out of like a saucer on the top of his head. You have a very tall woman in armor who looks like she's attaching prosthetic limbs to herself as she fights.
And hey, I'm ready for like a more like open world Dark Souls games. I know those
Yeah,
games are open world, but something more akin to like Assassin's Creed
yeah.
or
Well, they're like
like,
they're
Skyrim.
connected worlds, right? Like all those worlds have they're all connected in the sense that like you know there'll be very limited portions of the game where you actually have to use some sort of special like animation or means of travel to get anywhere, right? Like in the first game, that entire world is interconnected, but if you want to get to Anor Londo, you have to climb Sin's fortress and summon the gargoyles to carry you over the wall that separates Anor Londo from the rest of the world.
Yes, and now if I see a mountain, I hope I can go to it. That's the dream.
Yeah, and that's kind of what they're selling you with Elden Ring. Is like now it's just going to be this wide world that you can explore outside of like the pathways of a Dark Souls game. And it looks really good. You know, that's why they give you a horse this time, a horse that it looks like you can make jump pads for, like magic jump pads, so they can scale
Yeah.
cliffs. And also looks like we'll be integrated into boss fights.
Yes, that seemed really cool, and I hope this horse has iframes because I'm ready to
Oh,
dodge roll.
oh yeah, you really need that horse to have iframes because like the in the trailer, the horse like you're riding the horses, you fight a big dragon that is summoning lightning, and like yeah, that horse needs iframes because there's no way I'm dodging everything that dragon's throwing at me on horseback.
Yeah, yeah. And then so that was cool. I'm excited for Elden Ring. I'm ready. It's this year, wasn't it?
It's
Is it
no, it's January of
November,
it's January
January
of
of next year?
2020.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
close. It's close.
2022.
It's
Yeah, it
close.
looks surprisingly close. I really I want to see what they're doing here. I want to see how having a like storyteller like Martin on staff. Like I'm not big on Martin, right? Like I'm not big on George R. R. Martin, but like the biggest sort of self-criticism of Dark Souls from Hideki Miyazaki being like the series sort of director and like president of From Software is that he doesn't think he's a particularly good storyteller, and that's why he makes them as vague as he has. Um, so
Yeah.
I'm interested in seeing like what someone, not necessarily with the chops, because I don't know if I believe that about Martin, but like with the sort of history of storytelling and like confidence
Yeah.
that
Well,
Miyazaki seemed like might lack in that department will like bring to this game.
yeah. In between writing his other Game of Thrones and watching the Jets football team
He's
play,
not
he
writing that
is
book.
he is working. I know.
Like the Winds
He's
of
shadow
Winter,
writing it. Who
the
knows?
Winds of Winter's not coming out anytime soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. So from the Ubisoft press conference, the other thing that got me really hyped was Riders Republic, and that I want. This game has everything. I'm like it's got style. It's like snowboarding, mountain biking, and I don't know, like jet fueled like Buzz Lighter gliders is what I'll explain them as. And it has like a bunch of massive world like MMO stuff where you're like doing races with up to like 30 other people or something. And then like Trackmania Turbo vibes come up in this when I'm like watching it. And like this game is fucking pretty. Like when it's next gen when you're getting these beautiful sports games coming out and stuff. And they're just like, mwah, chef's kiss, Austin.
Yeah, I don't know, it's not I try to think of anything to say about like, these extreme sports. I don't even mean like and I know I like added some connotation to the word extreme there, but I don't even like mean it in that way. Um I could see like why people would definitely be more interested in this sort of like far more encompassing sports game than like what we were given with like Steep, right? And also seemingly a bit less stressful because I think one of the biggest things about Steep was it's very easy to just wipe out in a way that you just have to watch this character like sort of like pinwheel through an environment that like in real life would definitely have killed this person.
Yeah, so this seems like a lot more chill, and it's got like it looked like it had open world stuff where you have like a giant fan attached to your back. So I hope there's like some other stuff to do there as well. But it looks neat. I don't remember when their release date. September 2021. So September 2nd. That should be cool. And then you've got Vampire the Masquerade on here. I think this was from the PC gaming show.
Yeah, so on the PC gaming show, one of the things they brought up was, and apparently this is a game that had been announced before, right? But the only sort of frame reference I have for Vampire the Masquerade is Bloodlines, and that game was canceled. The sequel to Bloodlines was canceled, or has been put on like indefinite uh, hold, more so. This is Vampire the Masquerade Swansong, which had been teased before with this sort of trailer showing several characters being invited to a party, right? That classic, almost murder mystery esque setup of some rich patron has invited this wacky cast of people who don't know each other to their sort of apartment or location, and then something bad's going to happen there. And what we got this time was a trailer about one of the characters, Alicia, who is within. Do you know Vampire the Masquerade? Do you know?
It's based off an
Yeah.
RPG,
Do you
I
have the
think.
lore here? Because I don't have the lore.
No, I don't
Okay.
have the lore.
Well,
I just know the other ones were like neat open world games and stuff.
yeah. So like I know Vampire is like a tabletop RPG, and that there are factions here, and so one of the character they show off, Leisha, is Malkavian, and I'm not sure exactly what that means. Uh, I wish I did because it seems interesting, but um, yeah, it's this sort of character trailer where she is playing a game of hide and seek with her child, and then like that sort of the environment turns a bit different, and turns out she's like in a hospital room. A doctor walks in, seemingly not like acknowledging her presence until like she gets really angry because like she doesn't know who her kid is. So it looks like her sort of narrative for this game is going to be trying to find her child. And considering that the ending tagline for this trailer is "See the truth," there might be something more there. Like she might not actually have a child. It might be something else. Um, I'm interested in seeing how that develops because it's also like this is an RPG. This is a smaller like sort of mystery RPG that's being made by the studio that is behind the Council. The Council being a sort of a mystery game where you are interacting with a number of historic figures on an island at some event. And people seem to think people liked the Council. I never got around to playing it because I was still at the point where I saw the name like Focus Home Interactive, and I was like, I can probably leave that one alone because it's the publisher for that behind that game and several other games that I just never hit me in the way I wanted them to.
Yeah, so I watched the trailer for a bit. It looked cool. I know that the people like those Vampire Masquerade games, and I'm curious to see what happens when it comes out. Here's my next one is this. Okay, so before we were getting rumors that this
Oh yeah,
Final Fantasy Origin like prequel that takes place in the universe of Final Fantasy 1. So we got this trailer. What were they screaming the whole time? Chaos.
yeah.
Chaos. God, this just it looks like. I will say, okay, so this is from the Square Enix press conference, and a bunch of those games did not look optimized, is what I'll say. Even like, we'll talk about like Guardians when we get to like the Square Enix press conference, but that game looked like it was having a hard time running. But yeah, this one looks a little rough. I think there's a demo coming out for it.
Well, the demo's supposed to be out.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's not running too well,
well, it's
so
not
they have
running.
to. Yeah, yeah, but I am into the art style and I'm into the combat, and I hope to see this when it's polished a little more. But yeah, I am way into. I like Ninja Theory games a lot. I didn't play Neo too much, but I like DMC. So this seems really cool and up my alley.
I just, it's just you have like this is supposed to be like a Final Fantasy origin story, and you decide like your protagonist is gonna be the most boring looking man I've seen in my life.
He looks like an NPC from Final Fantasy 15 who gives me bounty hunting
Yeah, like
missions. Like that's literally what this dude looks
yeah, he
like.
looks like
And then
exactly.
your other two friends, which is like Pretty Boy and Buff
Yeah,
Guy.
like slightly more buff guy, slightly less buff guy who's also kind of like hot. Um, it's that kind of thing. And did you see like the quote from Nomura? Because this is sort of concept and being like written by Tetsuya Nomura, who is just has a hand in like most of what comes out of Square Enix. And
Did you say that this game is a joke? Because I can kind of agree with that,
no,
but it's also seems really
he
cool.
said like something that he wanted to do with this game was tell the story of an angry man.
Let's tell the story of an everyman.
Angry man.
Oh, an angry man. Oh, yeah. No, I got massive Asura's Wrath vibes when I was watching this as well, which is that game's dumb,
Yeah.
and this game seems dumb, and you're turning stuff into crystals and breaking them and just fucking
Well, that's how you get like, you give them fatalities, but not one
yeah,
nearly as violent as what you'd find in, Mortal Kombat or God of War.
yeah,
Like there's a bit where you're like one of the dudes is like ripping the jaw of like a giant wolf off of, off of like its hinges. And instead of like what you have in God of War, which is where you take that bottom part of the jaw and you rip it off completely along with most of its skin along its chest, They just turn into crystals and you smash it.
Yep. And this is Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin. Also, bad subtitle name, but it's fine. You know that there's a PS1 pack called Final Fantasy Origins. That's 1 and 2.
Yeah.
That I think that it's kind of a homage to. So yeah, I don't have to talk about that too much. That El Paso Elsewhere is the next one we got here. That game looks fucking cool, Austin. What is this game?
Yeah, so El Paso Elsewhere is this is something that came up in the first day of the Guerrilla Collective showcase. This is a game. Where'd my article go? I had that open and then it just goes away. But El Paso Elsewhere is a game being developed by the folks over at. Come on, okay, I hate that. I can find the studio name later, but it is a game that I'm familiar with because I follow like the director of it, Zavlar Nelson, uh, and his company Strange Scaffold, which is making a lot of games. Like if you've heard of An Airport Run by Dogs, he's doing that. I believe he also has his hand in. He might be involved somewhat in Skatebird, and also is making a intergalactic like organ like transplant game. I don't have the actual title of that game, but it is some overcomplicated thing. And El Paso Elsewhere is a game that Zavler had been wanting to make for a while. And this is a sort of Max Payne inspired, like original Max Payne inspired noir shooter where you, as like a folklore expert, are fighting your way through a subterranean motel. Um,
And I would say it is more than inspired by Max Payne. I think you are what
yeah,
I will call Max
yeah,
Payne. He's got the narration too, which is really funny.
yeah, and that's Nelson doing the narration. And you're fighting your way through this motel as you try to find your way. Oh, it's a three-story motel. Okay. Yeah, a three-story motel gained another 46 stories, all below ground. And your objective here is to kill your ex, the Lord of Vampires.
I love that we're getting to the point where they're making games that look like PS1 and PS2 games to like that animation style where we were getting like the 2-bit that or the 2D like 32-bit era stuff
Yeah,
in like indie games, and now we're getting like the janky PS1, PS2 graphics, and I'm ready for this
yeah,
era because there's like a bunch of stuff later on that we'll talk about that like gave me the same vibes as this. Like, this game looks fucking cool. You have the bullet time shit, which Max Payne 1 and 2 did, you know, in the 3, where you're just lunging and shooting at people, and John Woo, like, hard-boiled fucking dual pistols.
yeah. It's really great. And like the other thing to note is like Zavlar, like his whole deal is like making games in like a sustainable way, right? And so that's part of how you end up with like these kind of aesthetics, and very like specific games that want to do like very specific things, right? And like how he's also is involved in so many projects.
Yeah. I'm also really into an airport for aliens currently run by dogs.
That's the thing, yeah.
This looks hilarious, and I really want this. And you're petting Texas dog and barista dog and flower dog. This is hilarious. It looks like what's that game where you're like the 2D dude running around in like Russia, and it's just bad jokes the whole game. It looks a lot like this. I can't think of the
I couldn't tell you.
couldn't tell. It's all right. All right. The next thing I got, I don't remember which. Let me see which one this was from, but it's called Lake, and you are playing as like a mail service delivery driver. This is from the Future Games press conference, which we'll talk about in a bit. But you are taking a break from your day job, and you are moving out of the big city and moving back to your hometown to become a UPS or like a
Like mail,
United States
like
Postal Service driver.
yeah, because this is set in 1986.
Yeah. And I watched some gameplay of this. There's some stuff out from April, and this game looks really cool. It's got. I am more into the open world stuff than like the having the conversations with people. But I feel like it could kind of hook you in. The dialogue kind of looks like a Telltale game in the ways that like these like extended like conversations with people and stuff.
Yeah, well, it wants to be this real sort of like Hallmark, almost Hallmark movie-esque thing, um, where like you're this character who's working at this tech startup. Your dad is like, I don't know, either sick or injured, and so you have to like take over his mail route. And so for like 2 weeks, your character, a woman by the name of Meredith, is going to be performing his duties um, while he recovers. And by the end of it, she may or may not go back to the big city.
Oh, who's to say?
Yeah,
Who's to say?
you might find she might find that the charming life of Providence Oaks is something she really wants. She might
Yeah.
find
Returning. Sorry.
find a romantic interest and settle down like real Hallmark
Yeah.
movie stuff. It looks good though. I'm
Yeah.
I'm interested in like
Yeah, the graphics. I'm really into like the aesthetics of this. It reminds me. It looks like a much prettier version of like what we got from like the Deadly Premonition open world. Which I'm only comparing those two because there's lots of forests and you driving around and shit. What else was I looking at? I don't remember. Oh yeah, you're returning here after 22 years. This is like your hometown.
yeah.
And then next up we got Sable, which that was from the Summer Games?
Sable has been in
Summer Game Fest.
Yeah, Sable's been in like Summer Game Fest, was in the Future Games Showcase, was also in like Guerrilla Collective stuff. It's everywhere.
Were you tweeting about this? I don't remember if you were tweeting
I
about
tweeted
this
about
one.
Sable because I think Sable looks
Yeah.
just dope. Um,
Yeah, it's giving me like Trigun vibes too,
yeah,
which
and like
I'm into.
and Sable should sort of do some setting here. You play as a young girl named Sable as she like undergoes her sort of coming of age like ritual within her society, where she is exploring this desert that her and her sort of culture lives in, and you're um, m- sort of meeting with the other factions of this world and learning about their jobs and what they do and how they um, sort of how they contribute to your like people's continued ability to survive here. And my understanding is by the end of it, um, like Sable will sort of be forced, will not, will have to like sort of face like, well, what does she want to do with her life and who does she want to help? And what way does she want to help?
Ah,
That sort of thing. So it's this like coming of
ah,
age story as you glide around on your like really just dope looking glider and explore like ruins and this wasteland that you've grown up in that you spent your whole life in.
yes. Existential teen dread about what your career will be. I think it's also like a cool like framing device to have you like exploring and like getting to know this world through like a normal cultural like device, whereas like yeah, we want to show you this world and everything that's in it, and then we're gonna use this coming of age like story to be the reason why you're doing this as well.
Yeah, it is really interesting. The other thing to know about here is just like animation is like everyone moves like like how most characters like in film move around like what 24 frames
Yeah.
um like and most characters in games like move around like 30. I don't know why like films was my first go-to there, but like it doesn't seem like the characters themselves are like animating at like a 30 frames per second deal,
Yeah.
right? It is interesting like the aesthetic, like the choices that they've made regarding like the aesthetic and like how characters move around in here, and that's something I'm interested in. Like I'm very interested in what this is going to be.
So looking forward to that one. Here's another one from Devolver is Wizard with a Gun. And this one had a really fun, also Trigun kind of feel to it, where it's like you're in like the Badlands and stuff, but you're a wizard and you're captured. And they had this little like animated 2D thing where you're escaping a cage.
Yeah.
And it goes into the gameplay and it looks, I kind of get some Hyperlight Drifter vibes, and it's got like a really cool open world art style. It reminded me of that game we were talking about last week that I was playing, where the kid goes into the forest.
Wild at
The
Heart.
Wild at
Yeah.
Heart. Yeah. But except this one is like a more like a point and click shooter, but you're a wizard with a gun,
Yeah.
which is the hook of the
This
game.
looks really
It
like
looks cool.
Don't Starve, I'll say. Um,
I keep thinking about Don't Starve. Maybe I should play that. It keeps coming up in these podcasts where we're talking about these games that look like it.
I mean, Don't Starve is just, it forms like it came out at a time where it formed like the basis of like this is like how you can make these types of games that aren't, Minecraft.
Correct. So yeah, I'm into what this game's putting down. So another cool one from Devolver, and then we have is it Signalis?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, not Resident Evil.
I mean, they're very
It's from the Tribeca Games
yeah,
Spotlight.
they're very open about this just being like a Resident Evil like game, you know. Um yeah, so this is a survival horror, like a sci-fi survival horror game, where you are in like you crash the trailer's like you crash landed on a planet, you got to get resources to repair your body because you are a sort of like robotic person, it seems. Kind of like a sort of Blade Runner replicant, and you need to, collect resources, find like ways to get off, and sort of, I guess, reclaim like your lost memories. Is what the sort of the narrative hook here. It just looks really good, like aesthetic
Yeah.
wise.
Also in the style of the previous game we were talking about, where it's like these PS1
Yeah, like we've
aesthetics that
reached.
are coming back. That I'm like the polygon jank, where you can see the edges of these
Yeah,
of the like models and
yeah, but
stuff.
also just like significantly like more stylized, right? Like this is like what we're seeing with games like El Paso elsewhere and Singalis is like you want to recreate these aesthetics, but like now we also have the technology where we can apply very different styles that you would not have had the opportunity to use at the time. Because like part of what they do here in Singalis is when you approach something like a console or ooh, dog just kicked me uh, in her sleep. You approach something like a console, like the camera will go into first person, and you'll like move your mouse around to interact with items and objects in this interface. And like and all around it seems really interesting. The way that you're interacting with enemies in the trailer is really cool. I think like I'm really in a mood with for survival horror right now, right? Like going through Resident Evil games, and kind of wishing I could like easily get a hold of like the older like Resident Evil games. Like now I'm looking up Resident Evil 2 on Steam just in case. Uh,
Those old ones they're very interesting. They're very
well, I mean, yeah,
interesting. I have it. I played it on the Vita of all places because they put those PS1 games on there.
yeah, yeah. Like those are like interesting games, and like they also just have like a structure to them that even in their remakes you don't see emulated necessarily as not necessarily as well, I would say, or like as like to the extent that they like had these like sort of branching narratives within like the original second game, like the original like Resident Evil 2, right? Um, and like also just like how much of the Resident Evil 3 remake kind of skips over a lot of what happens in Resident Evil 3, like the original game.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but like yeah, this is a very interesting looking game with like a cool enough plot that I'm just like, yeah, all right, I could mess with this.
Yeah, I was gonna talk about Umuragi Generation coming to Switch, but apparently that came out June 5th.
Yeah, yeah,
So I guess I saw it in some press conference. I was like, oh, is that an announcement? No, it came out already.
yeah. It's one of those like
Um, yeah,
it just came out and we already put this show together, but like we can just like advertise it again here. And Umaragi's like, yeah, Umaragi's cool. I think more people should see it.
that game's a banger. It's got big Sega vibes. And we have Citizen Sleeper here, which is the last game we're talking about before we get to the big press conference list. We had the PC Gaming Showcase where that's from. Tell me about this, Austin.
Yeah, so this is like I think like near the end of the PC gaming showcase, gave us this look at Citizen Sleeper, which is being developed by Jump Over Age, uh, the folks who did In Other Waters. I did not play In Other Waters, so I'm not going to talk about that game. And this is a game where you play as a Assistant Sleeper is a game where you play as a sort of digitized human conscience, right? And you are in this android body uh, that like just escaped a like the sort of I'll say like we'll say the kind word here indentured servitude, right? Um, like you just escaped your like corporate overlords, and now you're in a station called let me see if I can find the actual. You're in a space station called Erlin's Eye, and you are like doing some work there. You're trying to eke out and like a living here on this station, while you interact with like a cast of people who are like trying to help you. Uh, and like sort of the big thing to note here is most of your interactions in this game are like heavily inspired by tabletop RPGs. So you have dice rolls, you have turn clocks, and that means is like like within a certain scenario you have a clock that is telling you how many actions you can take before it fills and an event happens. Like the closest frame of reference I would have for something like this is probably The Sprawl by Hamish Cameron, um, which is a really cool sci-fi tabletop RPG that I think people should look at. And also affects like like your character is you have skills that you're contributing to like you want to put points into so that way you can like develop a specific like character type and like talents and such. And the other thing is like you're also helping out like these people who are like spending their time with you and trying to help you out. You're also trying to help them out um, with like what they are trying to do here for some time. And I'm interested in seeing like that kind of interaction there. Um, and also the hacking that is going to come up here because it would not be a game where you were playing as a rogue corporate android if you didn't have like hacking skills. And part of this game is you going to be like hacking you like a unique power that only you have to sort of hack around Erlin's Eye and find like corporate secrets and all that good stuff. So you can perhaps maybe someday hope to get out from under the boot of your corporate overlords.
Yes, so that stuff is cool. So we are gonna get into the press conferences now. I'm gonna just kind of run down what happened in what order, and then we'll get into Devolver first. Let's see. Ooh, I closed that by accident. Wow.
Oh no.
E3 20. Hold on. Can't believe I closed those. I think we had Days of the Devs and Tribeca on Friday. And then Saturday was Ubisoft, Devolver, Gearbox, Wholesome Summer Games, and Future of Play. Sunday was Square Enix and PC Gaming. So the whatchamacallit, what was the one I was going to flip to? Was the Devolver one. That Devolver, they continue to have very good put together like what I would call short films about joking about like the industry and like what they're doing with stuff. They announced their Digital Max Pass Plus, which jokingly is just, hey, you can buy these off of our, a store for money. And then they were also selling the non-fuckwithable tape, which is their NFT fucking VHS tape that they had only one of. It's very funny stuff in there. Did you watch that one?
No. No,
No?
I can't muster any sort of excitement for like Devolver's conferences. Like their games are fine. Like Devolver as a publisher is fine. They put out interesting enough work, but like the humor of their press conferences has never worked for me.
Yeah, they're just kind of all over the place with some stuff. So that's where we got in Wizard with a Gun. There was some other cool stuff out of here. Let me go to my page with what they had. Yeah, they announced Shadow Warrior, Trek to Yomi, which was like a black and white 2D samurai game.
Yeah, like side-scrolling. Yeah, that looks
They had Phantom Abyss, which was like it's like a multiplayer game with like, I just got really big like Pitfall vibes from this. And like it looks like a weird game show,
Yeah.
but it's just a bunch of people running and like trying to get to the treasure at the end with like obstacles coming in front of you.
Yeah, and like as soon as someone gets to the treasure at the end of it, like the entire like temple, like ruin resets. It's kind of.
Then we had a Death Door, which is a top-down action game where you reap the souls of the dead as your day job. Which, fuck it, let's go.
Yeah, I mean
that game looked kind of neat
that's
too.
the grind, you know.
Let's see what else we have on here. We had the Inscription. That Inscription, I didn't put it on my list, but this game looks so fucking cool. It's like you're in a tavern playing cards and like a board game with someone. So you have like a board game and that's where you choose what level or what you're going to do. And then you get into like a card game that's all these like black and white looking handwritten cards.
Yeah.
And you're basically playing monsters, and then you have this, what I will describe as like you have your main game, and then you'll get up from the table and you'll have to solve puzzles in this cabin and come back to it. Looks really cool. Weird, very weird.
Oh yeah.
Let's see. Tumble Time is a meme game that the developers played at the show that you can just get on their website. It's like an Android iOS game where it's just a parody of that shit. Can I play it? I can play this right now. I'm not going to play this right. You can pre-register for it. It's like an Android Apple thing that's coming out. And then Demon Throttle is this was like a really interesting announcement on there. This is only coming to physical.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a 2-player co-op, like NES looking game. And you can't play it digitally. Like they were making a big deal about that. So that's cool. And it's being put out by one of those companies that are doing like the exclusive like releases of stuff. I think that's how Hades was getting like a Switch release, or maybe it was a different game.
Well, Hades was getting it was already on Switch. Like Hades showed up on the show like at Xbox. Yeah, but I don't know. This is a bit weird. I think like the only physical purchase and like also limited physical like run is weird and bad.
Yeah, but yeah, whatever. They're doing stuff. Maybe it'll come back later. We had the Borderlands, not the Borderlands. So that's the only thing Gearbox is actually known for that's like good stuff. We had the Gearbox thing, and I forgot to throw that Tiny Tina's Wonderlands trailer in there because that also was like premiering at the Keighley event. Was it the Summer Game?
Yeah, Summer Games Fest.
I'm really excited for that, but I was thinking they were going to do the thing like Borderlands pre-sequel does, is where you play as Tiny Tina, like where you have like one of the characters as one of your playable people, and then you have everyone else, like they did with like Claptrap. But she might be narrating it, kind of like the Borderlands 2 DLC.
Yeah, I don't.
Which was like she was like a DM for like an RPG for like Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, it was Bunkers and Badasses is what it was called in Borderlands 2. I mean,
this has a bunch of voice. It has like Andy Samberg and like Will Arnett and some other people, and this is like a fantasy setting looter Borderlands thing. And I don't know. I'm curious what it'll come out to be like. I really like Ashley Burch.
Yeah,
so.
Ashley Burch is like
Ashley Burch.
Ashley Burch is great. Not stoked. I don't know. I see, like, I'm at a point. I don't know when I entered a point with like Will Arnett that I saw Will Arnett and I'd be like, oh, great.
That
yeah,
guy.
I don't know when I became that person with Will Arnett. Yeah. He was really good in Arrested Development, but at some point.
So that looks really cool. I'm tepidly excited to see how this is going to come out and if it actually like comes to something.
Yeah. I want to see like
cool.
how it plays. I think like the idea of using like forging weapons with like magic is like kind of what they teased in that trailer. Is interesting. I think that could be like a way to solve like one of my bigger problems with Borderlands is just that there's so many guns, and so many of those guns do the same damn thing.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm just gonna go through. It's kind of a weird one because they had like behind the scenes of
The
like
movie,
Randy Pitchford on the Borderlands movie set. And it was just whatever. And they had a Godfall thing, and then was it Homeworld or something? Was
just a
their
hint,
older
just
game they were coming back?
Homeworld
Yeah,
3, just a little title card, Elder Scrolls 6 style title card of Homeworld
and that
3.
Tribes of Midgarth thing that went on too long, which is like a it's like a co-op like Thor, not
Well, yeah,
Thor.
it's another like
Yeah,
action survival game. It's another one of those, and it's also another
yeah,
damn game that's like Norse mythology. Because like at some point
yeah.
in the past few years,
Ragnarok.
every video game developer is like, oh, what if I read about Norse mythology real quick, um, and
Yeah.
then put that in a game.
And then I'm gonna run through the Square Enix one really fast because I think we're gonna be eating lunch in a bit. So okay, Square Enix they had that Babylon's Fall, which is like the Platinum's games turning into a live service game. Don't know how I feel
So
about that.
angry.
Kind of weird. Kind of angry. Yeah. With the Strangers of Paradise, which was the Final Fantasy Origin thing. The Life is Strange True Colors. That looks really
Yep,
cool.
still looks good.
And then they have the Life is Strange like HD
Yeah,
thing. Is that
remastered.
what True Colors is, or True Colors is
No,
a
True
sequel?
Colors is a sequel to is like just a continuation of like the Life is Strange
That's right.
series. The remastered collection is Life is Strange 1 and Life is Strange Before the Storm, which is the prequel to Life is
Yeah.
Strange. Just being updated in their
Yeah.
look, even though they don't look very different, but
No. That's all right. We're getting that Black Panther expansion for Avengers, which is gonna be free. That's for the people who want it. Guardians of the Galaxy got announced, and this is the Eidos Montreal thing. They were the ones who did that third Tomb Raider game, while
yeah.
the Crystal D was working on
Also did
Avengers.
the Deus Ex.
This looks really interesting. I some people didn't like the comedy. I kind of like the comedy. I hope the gameplay kind of comes through, but it's single player and you're playing a Star-Lord, and I hope they let you pick the other people, but it might be that just they're in your party. But you're going and you're having your Guardians of the Galaxy adventure, and you're doing stuff, and Rocket has like a weird goatee thing. But it looks interesting. Whenever you use your ultimate, like an 80s song will play, which is like, okay, there's 30 licensed songs
Yeah,
coming in it. It didn't run too well. It's coming out in October, so I hope it gets a little better by the time it comes out. But
it
who knows?
doesn't look good. Um, like you're not gonna get it does from like what they've shown us. It does not look like you're gonna get to play as the other Guardians. It looks like what you're doing is mostly you are only playing as Quill, and in combat, like what you're doing is like a Final Fantasy 15 style, like bringing up your like companions' abilities to do specials against other enemies. And it looks like they all have at least four to choose from at any given point in time.
Yeah, and then like you're kind of just shooting
Yeah,
people. You're kind of just flying around shooting people and then smacking them with your
yeah, like
gun.
punching
So I'm
people with
like,
guns. It's always been the thing about like watching Star Lord do anything. It's like you have you're that's a gun, my dude. Why are you punching them with it?
yeah. So I would have hoped you would have some melee weapon choices too, because that would make like the hack and slash. Because this looks like it is like a hack and slash, but I feel like they're focusing more on his gun stuff. But this could be cool. This is something I feel like it could come out, be like a 7 or 8 out of 10. Good story, maybe not good gameplay. I don't know. We'll see. I like the vibe it's putting off. I think it's much like the Avengers take. This is not the actors from the movie. This is their own voice cast and
Oh
stuff.
yeah,
I didn't look at the
well
voice
yeah, it,
cast,
it
but
can't be.
they sounded okay.
I mean they're probably fine. I think the humor is like really bad. Like they get off of their ship to go in the gameplay demo. The 20-minute gameplay demo they show just entirely too much.
Yeah, and like their like hour to 15 minute
Yeah,
like was how long this whole
so
thing was gonna
they
be. It's like
get
that's a
off
lot of
of
Guardian.
the ship, and like the first thing they're doing is like, oh, the fortress is impregnable, and it's like, well, how do we impregnate it? It's like, shut up. But like the enemies
Yeah,
they're fighting, like it's quite literally just a gelatinous cube, um, like a D&D gelatinous cube. But like in these interesting enough environments, like the environments they're in look really good. And once they get into like the fortress they're going to I guess just rob this person, um, like the inside of that air, like that fortress looks interesting enough. The villain looks like they saw Cassandra from Assassin's Creed Odyssey and were like, what if we made her blue? Um,
yeah. Gamora looked kind of weird too.
I mean, Gamora, like they all look kind of weird. Like Drax looks like Kratos. Peter Quill looks
Yeah,
like he's gonna publish an essay on cancel culture. Uh,
yeah, and he looks like he hangs out with Dante from DMC a lot.
yeah, and like Gamora, like of them all, like Gamora is like the most you read like a Guardians of the Galaxy comic book, you look at a comic book from Guardians of the Galaxy, it's like yeah, that's Gamora, that's fine. Um,
Yeah, and I think Drax kind of looks like he does in the comic too. He's got like the black like lines
yeah,
on the top
and,
or the dark lines.
and
Yeah,
it's just not that interesting. And I think maybe I would have been excited for this at like the height of like Guardians, right? Like of Guardians popularity when that came out and people were like, "Oh wow, this is the next Star Wars." Sort of thing.
yeah, yeah. And now James Gunn is doing the Suicide Squad new movie and then coming back. But I don't know. It looks cool. I'm curious. If the reviews are good, it might be something cool. Pick it up on sale. Who knows? And then they had the it's Final Fantasy 1 through 6, but only on PC and mobile so far. Not going to
Screaming.
come to like Switch. What?
Yeah, it's
But
and they're like
whatever.
what like
It's fine.
pixel like they even like their trailer even has it saying like pixel perfect remasters, right? And it's like, well, what does that mean? Like, are you going to show us what that looks like? No, because we're going to go to the Black
Yeah.
Panther expansion for Avengers now, and you're going to watch Black Panther fight Ulysses Claw.
Yeah. And let's see. What else do we have on here? We had the Future of Play, which I think that was might have been Saturday or Sunday, but that had some cool stuff in it too. Had like I'm just gonna run through these. I had like Skullgirls 2, had Symphony, which is like a 3D platformer, which also has like those PS1 vibes that I was talking about and stuff. Um, Virtuoso Neo Media is an indie studio with a slate of upcoming arcade
Yeah,
games that are kind of like F Zero inspired. Hellbent, and this is where they had the Umaragi trailer. That was this one. I didn't watch that one too much. The Wholesome Direct, I think I caught some of that. Bird Problems. It's a sitcom narrative about an awkward bird. That seems kind of funny. I want to play Snacko, which is a farming game where you play as two big kitty kittens, and it just kind of looks like an Animal Crossing Harvest Moon thing.
yeah,
And Ooblets.
more ooblets.
Gotta love more Ooblets.
Yeah, like
Skatebird.
yeah,
There's a
cool
bunch of
stuff
stuff in here.
from Skateboard. Like unpacking looks fun.
Yeah.
That being a game where you're just like sort of going to different like spaces as like this character is going through life and like unpacking their boxes of possessions and such. Kind of, I'm genuinely afraid it's going to take like a sort of similar narrative arc to like a Florence, which is a mobile game developed, published by Annapurna a couple of years back.
Yeah, and I think there was like 20 or 30 games that were like shown off during
Yeah,
this. That power washing game looks really funny. I think that's
really
out
just too many
already.
games.
Yeah, a lot of Hey, you get the indie games. You're gonna get a lot of them. There's something else on here that looked really. Hot Pot for one looked really funny because it's just like a first-person cooking game, kind of fun art style. Tribeca Games. I didn't watch this, but did you see anything
Yeah,
cool coming
so
out of it?
Tribeca is where you get Singalis, Signalis, whatever that game is. That's where you get that. It's also where they had a larger showcase for um, 12 minutes, right? And 12 minutes is this game that has been advertised for a while now, starring like James McAvoy, Daisy Ridley, and Willem Dafoe, and you it's about you, this dude who is stuck in a time loop and knows he's stuck in a time loop, right? That's like going over the course of 12 minutes as you're stuck in this apartment. The first time it happens, it looks like your wife is murdered, and then it resets, and you sort of have to continue to like talk to your wife about like why is this person coming to kill us? Like what does this have? Like what does this have connection to your past, sort of thing, and like just figure out how to navigate this, and also interact with the person who's coming to kill you, because turns out Willem Dafoe wants to talk to you. That's also where you get like a bigger interview about Sable. It's where you, I think, get a pretty extensive look at Kenna in the Bridge of Spirits, which is something that was shown at the PlayStation, has been shown with like PlayStation 5 stuff, and uh, also more coverage on Harold Halibut.
Yeah, and was Sable the one that had like the Japanese
Yeah,
breakfast
yeah, where the score is
band doing like a cover for
yeah,
him?
the score is being made by Japanese Breakfast.
Which is really cool new band. I don't think they're that new, but they've kind of risen in popularity. I think they were on like some talk shows showing off some of their new stuff from their album.
Yeah, they got a good sound, at least a sound that I personally am like a sucker for. Hey, like Tribeca Games is like just all around some pretty strong games and a good presentation in general. Like if I think of like the Wholesome Direct and like wow, this is entirely too much stuff with like no real break between anything. Also with games that all have a problem where they look the same in a very real way. These are all sort of courting that twee aesthetic. Um, Tribeca is one where you have enough game, like you have like a smaller roster of games that all look very different and all look very interesting.
Yes, and then I think we had the PC Game Show and Day of the Devs. There's not so
Yeah,
much in here in Day of the Devs that I really
Day of the
recognize.
Devs was like right after Keeley's thing, like immediately after Summer Games Fest. It's I remember it having like a pretty good bit here. So as I'm looking at stuff like Axiom Verge 2, um, Death's Door, like the first time we saw Death's Door. You have Loot River, Moonglow Bay, Road 96, The Wandering Village, which is a sort of city management game where you are on the back of a colossal creature, sort of thing. So like, Day of the Devs is pretty
Yeah,
fun. It was a fun thing to watch. And what was the other one you said? PC Game Show?
it was the PC Game Show, and that had a lot of stuff. I didn't watch that, but
Yeah, it's.
yeah.
I mean, it was fine. I would say like highlights from there being Citizen Sleeper and Vampire the Masquerade Swansong.
So that was the beginnings of E3 for us. That kind of hits Saturday, Sunday. We'll come back in a couple days and talk about. We still have. We're gonna talk about Microsoft and all this stuff. Like they showed off Halo Infinite. At this time, they kind of came out already, but I wanted to throw them together. Something else. So we got Capcom. We got on Monday today at like 3:30. We got the Nintendo Direct on Tuesday at noon. Bandai Namco is at 3:25 on Tuesday, and then there's going to be an extended showcase for Xbox on Thursday, which is going to be at 1 p.m. So that should be cool. I'm really excited to see what's coming on Nintendo. They said they were mostly doing software, not really talking about if they're doing a Switch, the new Switch thing, and hoping for Metroid Prime Trilogy HD pack and maybe like a Wind Waker
You
thing.
fool.
I'm such a
Hoping,
fool. I'm so
hoping
hopeful.
for
And
Nintendo.
more of me being a fool is Capcom. I really want something Lost Planet, which isn't gonna happen.
Mm.
I know that maybe a Monster Hunter, but that would have shown up at like a Sony, like a Monster Hunter World 2, which that'll probably be later.
I mean, it's might be stuff like Rise. I don't think like you're gonna get. I don't think we'll see like a Worlds sequel within this year.
Yeah. I will my top Capcom games are stuff that's not going to come back because they haven't been performing that well. Was like Dead Rising, Lost Planet, basically just Dead Rising and Lost Planet. But like, gotta hope those series come back. Like, people don't like Dead Rising 4 that much, but I think it changed stuff enough. But we'll talk about that more.
Well, I mean, it's just like Dead Rising is. Problem with Dead Rising is just you have 4 games that are pretty hard to like tell apart and also like tell like what makes them each worth like sort of going through and picking up as opposed to just sticking with just one of them, like 2 works kind of because they're like, oh, now you can combine weapons and make something really fun improvised stuff as opposed to 1. But like after that, like what did like I can't think of much that like 3 or 4 did to really like freshen it up that much.
Yeah, and 3 and 4. So 2, 3, and 4 were actually like that. A new team, from Capcom. It was Capcom Vancouver, and then they shuttered that studio after 4 didn't do too well. 3 was just like an open world, and 4 brought Frank back and set you in a mall and like an open world, whereas 3 was just kind of an open world.
Yeah, it was like a whole city.
I like 4. 4's cheeky.
I remember 3 was when mobile integration into like traditional games was really big. So 4 opens and like you can use I'm pretty sure you could use like an app on an iPad or something to call in like airstrikes. Because that was the same year you also had something like The Division, where The Division, when they were advertising that, they had like a drone that a player on an iPad could control.
Yeah.
That never made it into the final product, of course.
No.
But
the one that did was Battlefield 4 Commander mode, where you could launch missiles at people's tanks. But anyway, so yeah, I'm at Twitter at Travis323Doyle. And how about you, Austin?
I mean, if you really didn't get enough of me, you can find me on Twitter at TWO.
And we will catch y'all next week. Thanks for joining us for part 1 of our E3 coverage.
Yeah, very exciting and chaotic times. Again, tell your games journalists. Let them know you're grateful for their roundups.
Yes, they're putting in the work. Till next time, later everybody.